Okay, so these are my thoughts on the special event from Apple, September 2019. If I had to give it just a few words, it would be underwhelming and a lot of the same. Typically, I'm pretty excited about these events, and I'm very excited about it. But what was presented was borderline gimmick. Like, the technologies that were introduced were ridiculously amazing and beautiful and all that stuff, but how it was pitched and how it's going to be earth-shattering and groundbreaking and all these different things, it's the same as last year, with few dramatic differences. And I'm kind of comparing this to the iPhone XS Max, the iPhone 10, all that type of stuff, like comparatively to last year's event. I'm going to skip pretty much straight into iPhone because it's like what mainly everyone was kind of listening for. They present it like they usually do, where it's like, hey, the new iPhone 11 is here. And they bring out a representative who's not like the main representative. And she did a good job of pitching the iPhone 11, which has 2 cameras. And they did change up a little something here, which I thought was clever. Instead of having that phone with a regular camera and then a telephoto, they had it with a regular camera and an ultra wide, which is smart. So it was like a 13 millimeter ultra wide, and then also like the regular 22, 24 lens or whatever. That, and I guess I shouldn't be so hard on Apple. There was something there was a very, it seemed like a very growing theme in the event to be able to justify like the lack of new features, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But I thought that was cleverly pitched. It was an iPhone 11. They put it at $699, which is quite a drop from last year. Its phone, and it's kind of comparatively to the iPhone XR if you really want to think about it. And then of course he comes out and it's like, oh, we've got a new one, and this is where it all fell to pieces for me, where I really you felt the gimmick. We've got a brand new iPhone. We're gonna call it iPhone 11 Pro. It doesn't really go off the tongue well, but I understand why they're calling it Pro. Like, they got the iPad Pro and all these other different Pros. It's cool. But what got me is how they justified what was Pro about it. Like, when you see the iPad, Pro, there's a lot of ingenuity. There's a lot of features in the iPad Pro that really kind of constitute Pro. Or if you see a brand new camera, and comparatively you're like, this is Pro, this is like the best of the best, but that's not really what it was. Like, the first statement was, hey, this is for you pros out there, and don't quote me on this is just, some summarizing. And then he was like, but this is also for everyone, even if you're not a pro. Like, you got to pick one. Either it's for everyone or it's for the pros. Like, don't try to pitch it as pro and then be like, okay, also everyone. So that was the first little hint of And then they got to, they talked about the hardware, and I thought it was really smart for them to talk about what really goes on the A13 Bionic chip. I thought that was really nice. But the main thing that they're calling this a Pro at was the Pro camera. They're like, this is a Pro design, which it's just another design. It's an Apple design. Don't get me wrong. Their Apple phones look nice, but comparatively, it's the same. And they're like, this is pro hardware. Okay, I get you. Like A13, but the iPhone 11 has the same A13 chip, so it's not different from the iPhone 11. And then they're like, this is pro cameras. This is the worst one. And I guess because I already knew this was coming, I heard all the rumors of 3 cameras. I kind of had an idea that this would be coming. But the problem that I got was, they're like, with this, you can be a professional photographer or a professional whatever. And I understand why they stick with just photographers versus like filmmakers, but it irritates me every single event that they never focus on video. They focus on video for like a couple minutes, and it's like an afterthought. So it's not like these are meant to be the best video cameras. They talk a lot about the photography game of what it can do, which is true. It can do a lot, but and maybe this is my perspective. I'm concerned about how does it work in video. Like what's it doing? So let me backtrack a little bit. So they introduced the 3 cameras, and they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. And how they showed it was nice. I thought that the presentation, as far as like the comparison, they pretty much showed what the regular camera looks like a view. They kind of had it on like some desert scene, person beneath a rock, which is cool, beneath like a dome type thing. And then they showed the wide angle, which was 2x out, which is dramatic. It's like double the amount that you can see in the viewpoint, not like 10% or 20%. That's a big feat. That's huge. And I'm like, I thought that was very clever. That was very nice. Although, that being said, the iPhone 11 also has that same wide angle lens. So that's not constituting pro if we're using that as our judgment. And then of course they showed the telephoto, which it's kind of, you're used to seeing that on any of the iPhones, so that didn't really change anything. They were saying, hey, you can from any vantage point you can kind of switch it in and out, which is powerful. That's nice. I like that. But here's the problem. It's not a pro camera. It's three cameras in one, but they're all kind of like okay. We're thinking about film, like photography, yeah, maybe we can pull it off. Maybe we can say, okay, pro photographer, because it does do a lot of stuff. The photos that come out of the iPhone do look beautiful. So I'll take that. But as far as filmmaking goes, he bounced around a lot of different things. Like it was just like this was like when he was presenting the photos. Like he said, we have 6 photos we want to show you, and take it that the first 3 I thought looked terrible. And then like the 4th or the 5th photo was actually from some person that got super high up on a crane. Okay, we're thinking real world life stuff where like what you're doing. And he was like, yeah, this was shot from an iPhone. And then this guy got up on a crane to do it. I know you're probably not going to do that, but we're just showing you what you can do if you were to get up on a da-da-da-da. It was a really weak statement. Like it seemed like they were floating around a lot of different stuff, which I did not appreciate. So I guess what I want to say is iPhone 11 Pro and iPhone 11 Pro Max, I feel like are gimmicky. But the iPhone 11, just the 11, which is kind of similar to the XR, I think is well worth it. I think they hit a smash hit with that. And that would be what I might trade my iPhone 10s Max in for, specifically because of the wide angle lens that I can just use or whatever. But the Pro one, just it doesn't make any sense because there's not any Pro features really in it. It's like you added a camera and now you're calling it Pro. Okay, I think that is my argument about the iPhone 11. Now, I'll briefly touch on a couple of other things that did happen in the event. And by the way, the pricing for the iPhone 11 Pro was $999, and then the Pro Max was $1099. I thought those are both good prices, even though you're really just paying to get one telephoto camera and paying $300 or $400. That's like the tough part, right? You have this iPhone that's $1,000 when you could actually get a real camera setup, like a legit camera setup, for the same cost. So my recommendation, if you're thinking about dropping that amount of money on that phone, do not do it. Drop it on a real camera set, a mic in a SL2 or something, like a camera, and you'll be way better off for it if that's like what's attracting you to it. Anyways, they mentioned the arcade at the very beginning. It wasn't too big of a deal for me, but the price point was perfect. They were like, here goes the arcade, you can do all these different things, or all these different creators, etc., etc. They looked nice, and they're like, oh, by the way, it's only going to be $4.99 a month for the entire family. I thought that was a smart move. I thought that was a really good push, because it was like $20 a month or even $10 a month. It's kind of like, oh, would I pay that? Would I not pay that? But $4.99, yeah, I can pay that. I can afford that. So I thought that was a good move. I didn't really catch the iPad Pro. The Mac, no, they didn't present anything about a Mac. I think that's in December and stuff like that. The Apple Watch, I thought that was a bit gimmicky too, comparatively to the last version or the version before that, or even the version before that. The film that they created for it was extremely clever. Just making sure we're still recording. It was extremely clever. I loved it. It was like, yeah, this watch tells time, but it also does this and this and this, and like it went through all these different scenarios, and it made you really understand like what the watch actually can do. Now, the problem with that is that your iPhone can too. So if you do have an iPhone, you don't really need a watch. There are things that the watch can do, but take it from a watch owner. I have a watch Series 2. I loved... Woo, that's a lot of cops. I loved my watch when I was using it. It was 4 different cops. I loved my watch when I was using it, but it's a brick pretty much when I'm not using it, and I have to put that effort into it. And I can't imagine that upgrading to Series 3 or Series 4 would matter that much more. There is technology in there. There is a lot of amazing things going on, but like if you're asking the question, should I upgrade? No, I don't think you should. Should you buy one right out? That's a good question. I don't recommend maybe buying the watch unless you really are feeling committed to working out, and like not because of the watch, but because maybe it's part of your day. That it really does motivate you and get you going and do all sorts of things. But if your heart is not in it or you don't have the time, it just becomes a watch on your wrist that tells the time. Now, here goes another growing theme. The price of it was amazing. So the Apple Series 5 or whatever, I think it was like $200 $299, I think, which is high. I wouldn't buy the watch for $300, even though I think I dropped $400 on my watch. Is that crazy? I wouldn't drop $300 on the latest version for the first time if that was. Anyways, but the Series 3, they priced it at $200. That's a really good price for that technology. That's a lot of stuff going on. Trust me. But I do think you need to be self-aware as to whether or not you'll actually use it. Yeah. So what else do we got that was hit upon? We had the iPhone, we had the iPad, we had the watch, the arcade. You know, they always talk about TV, OS, or whatever. And I think that the shows are going to be really nice. I haven't watched any of them. Like, I think it's interesting where they're kind of going at with that. Like, pretty much trying to be the absolute best at making a series. That's kind of going to be their niche or something. Like, really, really, really high quality filmmaking or film television series. But of course, I haven't seen any of those. I've just seen previews. So that is that. The intro was really clever. I loved it. It was a beautiful nod to all the things that they've done. It was a combination of like iPod and Apple Watch and iTunes and all these different things that are current or are legacy now, but it was very, very clean in a very illustrative way. So mad love and respect to that intro. They banged it out. Anything else that was presented that I'm missing? I think I'm missing something. I just can't think of it right now. I did a full podcast on iOS, like iOS 13, Mac OS, iPad OS. If you'd like to check that out, I will put it. You can either look me up on Spotify, Will Mosley Podcast, or if I find that I do have time, which I probably don't, I'll put it up on YouTube as well for you to kind of watch alongside this. Today is special because it is my 4-year anniversary, so I'm looking to try to pull off something nice for the wife. So I'm doubting that I'm going to get that up. Anyways, I hope this helps you in maybe any decision of that you're going to make going forward or buying. Personally, for me, the only thing that I would maybe be interested in is possibly trading in my iPhone XS Max for the basic iPhone 11. Simply because that wide angle lens does make sense for what I do versus the telephoto, but no iPhone 11 Pro Max or whatever. And I probably won't trade in. But if I were to trade in, that would be the thing that I'd go with. Okay. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Happy iPhoning or whatever. I don't know. Catch you on the next one. Oh, and if you need a promotional film, go to heywillmosley.com. Bye.